Stand by one of your windows on a cold winter night and hold the back of your hand up close to the glass an inch away and then down low along the bottom of the window frame. Feel that? That cold pouring off the glass, that draft sliding in along the bottom. That is your heat leaving your house and your money leaving your wallet all winter long, every hour of every cold day and night. You paid to make that heat with wood or oil or gas or the electric, and it is running straight out through your windows into the night. I am going to show you today how to stop a great deal of that for about $5 in an afternoon. And the reason nobody makes a fuss about it is that there is no money in a person who burns less fuel. Here is the truth about your windows that the power company has no reason to tell you. In most houses, the windows are the weakest point, the biggest hole in your blanket of warmth. A wall is thick and packed with insulation, but a window is just a thin sheet of glass, and glass is a poor stopper of cold. It lets the warmth of your room pass right through it to the cold outside. And worse than the glass itself are the gaps, the cracks around the frame, the space where the window meets the sill, the little gaps you cannot even see, all of them letting cold air leak in and warm air leak out, a steady draft you are forever paying to replace. Heating your home is the single biggest cost most families face in winter, far bigger than anything else, and a good share of that heat is lost through the windows, through the thin glass and the leaky gaps. Stop those leaks and slow that loss, and your fuel goes further and your bill drops every single day of the cold season. My name is Jacob Stoltzfus. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the winters are long and hard, and a January night will steal the warmth from a house in a hurry. We heat with wood mostly, wood we cut ourselves, and there is nothing that makes a man more careful about losing heat than knowing exactly how many hours of swinging an axe went into making it. So, we tighten this house up tight against the winter every fall, and the windows above all, with simple, cheap things that anyone can do. I am going to show you the whole of it today. I am going to give you several fixes, from the one that costs almost nothing to the one that costs a few dollars, working from the cheapest up. I am going to walk you through each, and I am going to be honest about what each one saves and what it does not, because I will not tell you a thing that is not true. And there are a couple of safety matters here around heaters and around the air your house needs to breathe that I am going to be plain about, because a house sealed up the wrong way can be a dangerous thing. There is also one trick, one cheap material that does more to stop the cold than anything else for the money, and most folks have never heard of it. Stay for that part especially. Let me give you that one trick first, because it is the best value of all, and it answers the biggest loss: the thin, cold glass itself. The trick is to put a second layer of still air in front of the glass, and the cheapest way to do that is clear plastic film. You can buy a window insulating kit for a few dollars, which is a sheet of clear shrink film and a roll of double-sided tape. You tape the film all around the inside of the window frame and stretch it tight, and then, this is the clever part, you run a hairdryer over it or set it near the warmth, and the film shrinks up, drum tight and clear as glass, so you can barely see it is there. What you have made is a pocket of trapped, still air between the film and the window, and that trapped, still air is a fine insulator. It stops the warmth of your room from reaching the cold glass and pouring away. This one cheap trick, a few dollars a window, cuts the heat loss through the glass dramatically, and you can still see right out. In the spring, you peel it off and throw it away, and do it again come fall. For the money, nothing beats it. Now the gaps and drafts, which is where the cold air actually pours in, and here the fixes are cheap and simple. The first is weather stripping. Strips of foam or felt with a sticky back, a few dollars a roll, which you press around the parts of the window that move and meet, sealing the gap where the cold air sneaks through. You run your hand around the window on a cold day, feel for where the draft comes in, and there is where the weather stripping goes. The second is for the gaps that do not move, the cracks between the window frame and the wall. For those you use rope caulk, a soft, putty-like rope you press into the crack with your thumb, a few dollars, and it seals the gap all winter and peels right out in spring without harming the paint. The third, for the bottom of the window and the bottom of doors where the worst drafts often slide in, is a draft stopper, what the old folks called a draft snake, a long tube of fabric filled with sand or rice or rags that you simply lay along the bottom of the window or door to block the cold air. You can buy one or sew one from scraps in 10 minutes for nothing. Weather strip the moving gaps, rope caulk the still cracks, lay a draft snake along the bottom, and the last layer, free or near it, is heavy curtains. A thick, heavy curtain drawn across a window at night puts yet another barrier of still air between your warm room and the cold glass. And it makes a real difference, especially overnight when it is coldest. The old folks knew this. Heavy drapes were not just for looks, they were for warmth. So you draw your heavy curtains at dusk to hold the heat in. But, and here's a clever thing, on a sunny winter day, you open the curtains on the windows that face the sun and let that free sunshine pour in and warm the room, then close them again at dusk to trap it. Open to the sun by day, closed against the cold by night. That alone, costing nothing, helps more than you would think. Now I have to be honest about what this does and does not do, because I always am. These fixes will not turn a drafty old house into a sealed modern one, and they will not replace real insulation in your walls and attic, which matter even more than the windows. What they will do is plug the biggest, cheapest to fix leaks, the thin glass and the drafty gaps, and that all together makes a real and steady difference in your comfort and your fuel bill for about $5 and an afternoon. Your rooms will feel warmer near the windows, the drafts will stop, and your heat will last longer between firings. It is not a miracle. It is a sensible, honest saving that pays you back all winter, every winter, for almost nothing. And now the safety, because a house can be sealed up the wrong way, and that is no small thing. First, mind your heaters. Do not run plastic film or hang curtains close to any heat source, a wood stove, a space heater, a radiator, or anything with a flame, or that gets hot, because cloth and plastic near heat is a fire waiting to happen. Keep all of it well back from anything hot. Second, and this is important, do not seal your house up so tight that it cannot breathe at all, especially if you burn anything indoors. A wood stove, a gas heater, an oil heater, a gas range. Anything that burns fuel needs fresh air and must vent its exhaust properly. And a house sealed airtight can let dangerous fumes, the silent poison of carbon monoxide, build up. So you seal the windows and the obvious leaks, yes, but you keep your heating appliances properly vented and you make sure the house still gets some fresh air, and you keep a working carbon monoxide alarm in any home that burns fuel. Tighten the leaks, but never at the cost of the air your family breathes. Honest is always better than careless. Let me give you the troubleshooting. If you still feel a draft after weather stripping, Run a candle flame or a lit stick of incense slowly around the window on a windy day and watch where the smoke bends. That shows you exactly where the air is still leaking, and you seal there. If your plastic film keeps coming loose, the surface was dusty or damp when you taped it. Clean and dry the frame first and press the tape firm. If a room still feels cold near the window, even with the film, add the heavy curtain for the night and check that the curtain is heavy enough and reaches the sill. Most every leak can be found with a candle flame and stopped with a few cents of material. Let me explain why the trapped air matters so much. For once you understand it, you will see the sense in every fix I give you. Heat moves in three ways, and you fight all three. It moves by touching. Warm air touching cold glass gives up its heat to the glass, which gives it to the cold outside. It moves by drafts, warm air leaking out through gaps, and cold air pouring in to replace it. And it moves by the warmth of the room radiating toward the cold surface of the window. Now, here is the key. Still air, trapped air that cannot move, is one of the finest insulators there is. It is why a thick wool blanket warms you. Not the wool itself, so much as the air trapped in it. It is why two thin blankets warm better than one thick one. The air trapped between them. So nearly every fix is really about creating a pocket of trapped, still air between your warm room and the cold glass and stopping the drafts that would carry your heat away. The plastic film traps air against the glass. The heavy curtain traps air in front of the window. The weather stripping stops the draft. Understand that you are fighting heat's three escapes with trapped air and sealed gaps, and every fix makes sense. Let me give you more detail on the plastic film since it is the best value and folks sometimes do it poorly. The clear shrink film kits are cheap and work beautifully, but the secret is a good seal and a tight stretch. You clean and dry the window frame first, so the double-sided tape sticks fast, dust or damp, and it will peel away in a week. You run the tape all the way around the frame with no gaps. You press the film on, starting at the top and working down, leaving it a little loose. Then, you go over it with the heat of a hairdryer, holding it back away and moving steadily, and the film shrinks up drum tight and clear, the wrinkles vanishing until you can scarcely tell it is there and can see right out. That tight, clear film an inch or two off the glass traps a pocket of still air against the window, in effect giving you a second pane for a few dollars. It is the single best thing you can do for the money, and on an old single pane window, it makes a remarkable difference. In spring, you peel it off and discard it and put fresh up next fall. Let me give you more on finding and sealing the drafts, for the gaps lose more than most folks reckon. On a cold, windy day, the leaks announce themselves if you know how to listen. Wet the back of your hand and move it slowly around the window frame and the sash. Your wet skin feels the faintest draft as a cold streak. Or take a lit candle or a stick of incense and move the flame or the smoke slowly around the edges. Where the air is leaking, the flame bends or the smoke streams sideways, showing you the exact spot. Mark each leak and then seal it. Weather stripping for the moving gaps where the sash meets the frame, rope caulk pressed in with your thumb for the still cracks between frame and wall, and a draft snake laid along the sill for the bottom. And do not forget the lock. Many windows seal far tighter simply by latching the lock, which draws the sash snug against the frame. Lock your windows in winter. It costs nothing and closes the gap. Find every leak with hand or flame. Seal each by its kind and latch the locks. Let me add a few more cheap fixes the old folks used, for there is more than one way to hold the heat. Heavy quilts or blankets hung over the most troublesome windows at night. Not pretty, but our grandparents did it without shame in the coldest rooms, and it works wonderfully to stop the night's heat loss. Folded towels or rolled rugs laid along leaky sills and door bottoms, cardboard or rigid foam board cut to fit and set into a window that is never used in winter, a spare room or a basement window, sealing it entirely. Bubble wrap, of all things, misted onto a cold window with a little water, clings to the glass and traps air much like the film, and lets some light through besides. A fine, cheap trick for a basement or a workshop window where you do not mind not seeing out clearly, and thick rugs on a cold floor and closing off rooms you are not using so you heat only where you live. Layer upon layer, each one cheap, each one trapping a little more heat where you want it. Let me say a word about where the heat truly goes so you spend your effort wisely. While the windows are the easiest and cheapest big fix, the most heat of all in many houses escapes upward through the ceiling in the attic, for heat rises. So while you are tightening up, do not neglect the simplest attic fixes: a draft coming down the attic hatch, gaps where pipes and wires pass up into the attic, all leak warm air upward, and cold floors over an unheated space below lose heat downward. The windows are where I have you start because they are easy and cheap, and you feel the draft plainly. But the whole house is a vessel for holding heat, and every leak you seal, high or low, keeps more of the warmth you paid for. Start with the windows this week, but know the same thinking. Trap the air, seal the gaps, applies to the whole house, top to bottom. And let me leave you with the simple order to do this in, so you spend your few dollars where they do the most good. First, find and seal the drafts, for a draft is the fastest, cheapest, most felt fix there is. Weather strip the moving gaps, rope caulk the cracks, lay a draft snake at the worst sill, and latch your locks. Second, film the windows that lose the most, the big ones in the rooms you live in, the single pane ones, for the film against the glass is the best value for stopping the cold pouring off the glass itself. Third, hang or draw heavy curtains at night and open them to the winter sun by day. Do those three in that order, and you will have stopped the great majority of the heat your windows were losing for about $5 and an afternoon, and you will feel the difference that very night. Drafts first, film second, curtains third. That is the whole plan. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Think about who profits from your drafty windows. The power company and the fuel man sell you the heat, and a house leaking heat out the windows. All winter burns more fuel, which is more sold, month after month. There is no company that profits from teaching you to tape a few dollars of plastic over your glass and stuff a rag along the sill. The folks who sell you fuel have no reason to show you how to use less of it. And the folks who sell you brand new $1,000 windows would rather you replace the whole window than seal the old one for $5. So a thing every thrifty grandmother knew, that you tighten the house against the winter with film and rags and heavy curtains, was let slip, not because it stopped working, but because there is far more money in selling fuel and new windows than in a roll of plastic and a draft snake. So here's what I want you to do this week before the cold sets in hard. Go to your windows on a cold day and find the leaks with your hand or a candle flame. Get a few dollars of plastic film, a roll of weather stripping, and a tube of rope caulk. Film the worst windows, weather strip the drafty gaps, rope caulk the cracks, and lay a draft snake along the leakiest sill. Draw your heavy curtains at night and open them to the winter sun by day. Mind your heaters and keep your house breathing. Then feel the difference. and watch your fuel last longer. Tell me in the comments below, where does the cold come into your house the worst? Which window? Which door? And did your grandparents have a way of tightening up for winter? A curtain? A quilt over a window? A rag along the sill? I read every single one of these, and the old ways you all share are the reason I keep doing this. Next time, I am going to show you how this farm keeps the heat in the room where the family gathers without burning gas or electric. The old ways of keeping warm that cost almost nothing. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, trap the still air, stop the drafts, mind the fire and the breathing, and remember the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.